welcome to A Living History with Ed Minshall, continuing our talk about the Autocar Company. Glad to have you with us today. The Autocar Company was in Ardmore on Lancaster Avenue, where the Ardmore shopping district is today, where it used to be Sam Goody and McDonald's and Baskin Robbins, and across the street where the Pancake House is and the automobile dealers, and it went on down Greenfield Avenue. And Ed, what's this building that we're looking at there? And let me what's that building?
Well, I believe that that's the sub-assemblies. In other words, assembling different parts that would go on, because on the other side of the street, the chassis went down and they put all those things on it. Mm-hmm. I think involved in there at that time was a fire company someplace.
Yes, Merion Fire Company.
Which is almost part of Ardmore, and there's quite a story to that. You know, the fire company. And a lot of the Autocar workers would jump off the line and go on an engine on a call, as I've been told.
Okay.
It's
as firemen.
interesting. Yeah.
Volunteer firemen.
Yeah, that's right.
The
Probably the bulk of the firemen were Autocar workers in the beginning.
Yeah.
It's called the Merion Fire Company.
In the old days, did Autocar have its own fire company?
It did originally, yeah. But that's why the township then went into a big deal and made it the whole township.
Okay.
That was there just for their purposes of quelling any fire that would be in the premises, you know.
Right.
And they'd be right there.
Yes.
But the township figured, I guess, that's a good spot in Ardmore to be one of the bigger fire departments in the township.
I remember one time we found a newspaper article, I think from the Mainline Times, and it said that during the summer break they were going to knock off a little bit, and it mentioned how many employees. Do you remember how many employees? I think it was 2,000.
Yeah.
Does that sound about right?
Yeah, that sounds close. Yes.
Around the 40s, 1948 or something like that?
Yeah. But of course that changed quickly with the war, and it went big, because you remember right after the war, the production catching up to the commercial market was big. They would tell how many, like 600.
Now, why was that? Why did we have to catch up?
Well, because, you know, after 42, there was a cutoff of any commercial production. Everything went into the half tracks, which was a big part of it. The half tracks, believe it or not, these half tracks were first produced in 1939, before the war. Now, they didn't interrupt the assembly or the production of commercial vehicles, but I think the government had asked these various manufacturers for some kind of vehicle like that. It's an old design. It started in 31, the French, Peugeot or Citroën. But now, in 39, the government received at least the first one from Autocar. 39. That's 2 years before the war, before we got in it.
Were they armor plated?
Yes, they were armor plated, and of course they kept improving. This design kept improving through the war, even. You know.
Now, were there other American truck companies that made?
Yes, there were. Diamond T, White, Autocar. I'll say Autocar first, okay? Autocar, White, Diamond T, and even International Harvester. I don't know the exact quantities each one did, but I do know that Autocar delivered 12,007 during the war, during the wartime. That's not counting the initial ones, they, pilot models and so forth. 12,007, exactly.
So there were no commercial trucks made, or very few.
Yeah, there was only for critical industries. In other words, if you were in a defense industry and had your own trucks, they would produce for you on that basis. But other than that, it was half tracks, tankers for the Navy, wreckers, for the Air Force to tow wrecked planes off the, and various things for the military.
Okay.
And that was it, period. That was the total.
So when you mentioned after the war, they had a lot of catching up to do.
Yes.
You were meaning that.
They showed in 1946. Just before they went on vacation, they were putting out over 600 in that month of July. And then the factory shut down for 2 weeks, so I guess that had something to do with it. But that's a lot from that type of factory, compared to what they were doing. These trucks are made on order, customer order. Every one had different specifications. Now, sure, Gulf Oil would order 20 or something like that. Philadelphia Fire Department ordered 50 pumpers. That would be standardized. But assembly line that's changing, you know, every 5, 2, 10 trucks down the line, they're different. They have different stuff in them, according to the customer order. That Autocar was a custom-built truck. You know, that was as advertised. Also, nut and bolt construction. Nobody else was doing that.
As opposed to? As
opposed to rivets, which worked loose over the years. Autocar had big, heavy bolts with a shoulder. They were pulled into the metal. They were big standard threads, and they pulled tight. Now, you could replace any part on the frame or chassis of an Autocar without burning out rivets, drilling, and all that.
Much simpler.
So, it was built to own for 20 years. That was the problem, maybe.
Yeah. Too good.
Yeah, too good.
Yeah.
Too good.
Now, I'm not sure of my orientation here, but this looks like the railroad tracks.
Yeah. Right.
And can you show us Lancaster Avenue and Greenfield?
Well, yeah. Lancaster Avenue. Here's Greenfield.
Right.
Right. And down here, the last one is the building, the more modern 5-story factory building that was put up in 1920. And that's Lancaster Avenue. And as you can see, the railroad's pretty close. And all these buildings back here are Autocar, and they're right on the railroad.
Right.
And one of the problems is, you know, they had to cart everything that they manufactured in engines and so forth across Lancaster Avenue into the Greenfield Avenue assembly plant.
So they were crossing a busy street.
Now, they had metal treating plants over there across the street. They had body shops.
Did they use forklifts? I mean, how did they get across Lancaster Avenue?
Forklift trucks. There was no underpass. That was always I would have thought that was always a problem. You have to stop. Traffic lights. You know.
Was the Schuylkill Expressway open in those days?
No, there was not. No, like I said, the main arteries were the railroad and Lancaster Pike, going west.
So you had quite a bit of tractor trail or truck traffic on Lancaster Avenue, going out to Pittsburgh and York and Lancaster.
Yeah.
And,
Okay. I'm sure the residents of Ardmore knew about that. Yeah.
Where did Autocar test their trucks?
You know, you'd have to ask my Uncle Fred, and you can't do that anymore. But he was a road test guy. He was a road test.
But it was in Ardmore.
It was in around Ardmore. As a matter of fact, when they were delivering some of the half tracks, they drove them down through Hartford Township, and they drove some of them down to the docks.
Oh, in Philly.
Yeah.
Whoa.
See.
Yeah.
And some were dispensed on the rails, but. They had a hard rubber thing. They could run on the road without hurting, but they did make a noise. And I remember hearing from residents, you know, a bunch of Autocars went down today, or half tracks, you know. Looked like the Army going down the road.
There's a picture here, and could you tell me what you see there?
Yeah, well, as you informed me, this is the Township Garage on Lippincott Avenue.
Yes, Lippincott.
Yeah. That's in South Ardmore, down at the far end of the assembly plant.
Okay.
And I see here all Autocars, just about. I know the street sweeper's not an Autocar. So
yes. Yeah.
Funny thing is, my dad, before he came to Autocar, was a draftsman for a machine company that made street sweepers in Philadelphia. And I'm just wondering now, looking at this.
Isn't that interesting?
Yeah. But he came to Autocars.
That's a coincidence.
At age 19, he came to Autocar as a draftsman.
Wow.
In engineering. Then he went into service and, ended up being service manager during the war.
I think this picture is from it says 1936 on the back of it.
Yeah.
So, and some of the early trucks in here, it looks like some of those cabs look like 1910 or 1915 or 20 or
the C cab.
Okay.
There's some, you see the newer ones sitting in the middle here.
All right. Yeah. Now, Ed,
these are probably from the 20s. I mean, the township didn't have all new, but these are probably very new trucks.
Okay.
You can see there's the newer. That's almost in the late 20s or 30s.
Dump truck.
Yeah.
Yeah. One time, what happened here?
Okay. They were raising a big, long pipe, for
smokestack.
Smokestack, yes. and it got away. The crane that was lifting it, it was too much, the leverage or something, and it tipped the crane over, and the whole deal came down across the main line of the Pennsylvania Railroad, and of course it broke the stack and everything. That's one view of it. I've seen other views of it, and guys all standing around there figuring out what to do.
So it was quite a crisis.
This was a crisis because they had to get it off the railroad. You know, the main line of the Pennsylvania Railroad held sway, I think, over some things in those days.
Yeah. I put in this picture of an auto car. Fire engine. Autocar made lots of fire engines.
Yeah. This one is a 1948 C50, I guess. Belongs to David Monteith out in Salisburyville, I think.
I forget what the name.
But this is it had a cannon, water cannon on it. It's a pumper, and it's in a parade. I don't know where this parade was.
Okay.
But it's.
Now
that structure's still around, you know.
Toward after Autocar was bought by whom?
Oh, White Motor Company.
Okay, 1950.
53, the merger became official.
1953, White bought Autocar.
That's the year I was in Chester.
And the buildings were empty.
Yes.
And Cleveland Wrecking was hired to
dismantle the factory.
And what happened?
And salvage what they could and so forth.
Okay.
Well. This factory building was filled with, it actually started over here, I think, and got into here. The factory building was fed, the big one, it did all the machine work and built engines and so forth with oil lines to lubricate the machinery and handle all that stuff.
Similar to those belts you were talking about.
Yeah, right. And Cleveland Wrecking was cutting these pipes to remove them. They're saving the iron and so forth. You know, they're salvaging the building and just taking it down. And the fire from their torches got into the oil and moved right through the building before they knew it. They thought there was a small fire in there because they saw some smoke. So they called the fire company, which is right there in the Autocar plant, in the former assembly plant, and they approached the fire not thinking it was that big a deal either. They didn't realize that fire in the oil lines and floors that are that thick with oak that since 1920 are soaked with oil, and when it got into that stuff, and at that end of the building it got into the old frame buildings and the old original building, which was kind of sad, you know. Well, I don't know, they're going to dismantle that and try to build someplace or not.
But it was a coincidence that the first building, I mean, the whole thing burned.
The whole thing, right down. I mean, there's a DVD that you have in your possession at the Historical Society that tells the story. You'll see people wandering around. They didn't think it was that much. I mean, people parked their cars and then they moved their cars, and the guys had these garden hoses out. You know, they didn't know what and all of a sudden it popped up here and it popped up there, and they were going from here to there. If you watch the DVD,
fire.
It's a real.
But it wasn't the Autocar plant didn't burn. It was the empty buildings that burned because Autocar had moved out to Exton.
Autocar was already operating in Exton. This was 1956.
56, summer of 56.
Right.
Now, Ed, we have some other pictures
well,
here.
Well, this is a sad deal here. And to some of my friends that were with Autocar when I was, this is the Autocar the Autocar factory branch of Philadelphia. Quite a nice branch, big branch, and it's still operating under Eastern Supply Company. But you see the Autocar stack is still there with Autocar and the white brick. Just this year, I got told by the Philadelphia Fire Department it burned, and it burned pretty badly. And Ted went down and took pictures. It was quite a nice building, but it's destroyed. You know, it was almost a half a block of building and a parking lot. It all belonged to Autocar, 34th and Indiana in Philadelphia. Here is Autocar in recent times. This is an Exton truck, and here's the first one. Probably the first one manufactured in Ardmore, because they had done some in Pittsburgh.
So you go from about 1900 to...
Yeah, this is 1900 to 1980s.
Okay, so you have 80 years of motoring history.
Yes, right.
Now, the Friends of Autocar, which you're associated with, did what? You know,
with the help of the Lerman Historical Society, much help, we installed a historical marker right on Lancaster Avenue, right approximately where the original factory building was. And it stood there for a while.
Yeah.
But unlike Autocar trucks, it didn't stand long.
But it's back, it's back up now. Yeah.
It's taking care of that. It's back.
All right. Now, Ed, it's been great talking to you, and I
Thank
really
you.
appreciate your coming in and sharing Autocar
I enjoyed
with
it.
us.
Enjoyed it very much, Ted.
Thank you. So this is Living History with Ted Goldsboro and Ed Minshall.